been no draws at all in 21 games. No draws. That'd be like playing blackjack and not having a push or something. It'd be very, very statistically unlikely. And here we have a very typical open Sicilian position. We got the typical backward pawn, the typical opposite sides castle, the typical black having to face these pawns being thrown at him. And the only thing not typical is that we have teenagers with 3,000 ratings playing the game.
I think we got to get used to that, Mike. And we're talking about our youngest player here is just 12 years old. And we're in this game, we are seeing some direct chess. This is really the brand of the youngsters these days. They just push as hard as possible. And h6 make an appearance. And funnily enough, once the pawn gets there, it's not just a signal for attacking. It's also a signal that you might want to go into an endgame where that pawn on h6 is actually just ruining black's chances in an endgame. But forget all that, because we are seeing that this is immediate, going for the jugular right now, because there's an open h line, opposite side castling, and it looks good for white to my eyes. It looks very scary for black. You know, if white could somehow get that queen over to h6, you know, it would be game over in a shot.
Yeah, nothing can guard h7 at all. The light square bishop is on the complete wrong side of the board. The only saving grace is this one knight. This one knight is stopping the entire attack because white simply cannot double on the h file. And if he could, it would just be winning. As you just said, Yovi, there's no guarding the h7 pawn. Now, black is using the Oreo defense. He's got the two black pawns on the outside and the white pawn in the middle. He's going to keep the cream there. He's not going to eat it just yet because that white pawn is actually helping guard the king. So he strikes back in the center. He's going to rip open the center. And this rook, remember, is tied down to d2 because it's the only piece guarding checkmate. A fantastic counterattack idea here by Sina.
Yes. And now white is on only move territory. You have to defend c2 because rook takes rook is a coming. So that's why the arrow is telling us that rook d1 is the only move. There really isn't too many other alternatives that you might want to be playing, because otherwise everything is just going to spring into action for black. Rook takes rook is coming. Bishop takes rook in the air.
Goes for a checkmate, but the knight just hops back to g6. And now rook takes rook, threatens everything. It threatens the triple attack on c2. It threatens the queen. It threatens the rook. It threatens every single thing that's near and dear to Patryk's heart. Now, how do you survive for white? You actually made your problems worse by putting your queen on the same line as the bishop, even though maybe you thought you were guarding, maybe you thought you were doing a bunch of good things, but you were actually hurting your position amazingly enough.
Yeah, it's just, you have to drop. I think you are going to be dropping two rooks with that move. Rook takes rook. I mean, it was just a blind spot there from white. It was a very, very sharp position. And with 24 seconds left on the clock, I can understand why it's so easy to panic and just lose control of the situation.
Things are looking great for Sina. I see no defense here. Rook takes rook is the threat. If you play rook takes rook first, black can play bishop takes back, and your queen is trying to guard the mate, trying to guard the rook on h1 and everything. So he tries bishop to d3. Now the computer says the black is winning, so there's got to be a breakthrough here. And maybe you just move your rook, just some calm rook move to reinvigorate the attack on the long diagonal. And in fact, yes, the rook just drops back to d6, and white is going to lose some amount of material here.
Yes. Maybe this is all part of the plan. Maybe his idea was to go queen e1, bishop takes rook, and then once you recapture... And that one, unfortunately, is a spoiler because you can't take it. And now here you're simply a rook down. There's no saving this one.
Yeah, it wasn't just an exchange. It was a full rook. The counterattack on the c file was better than the attack on the h file. A great lesson there if you're going to play either side of the Sicilian. You often can't defend your side of the board. You have to attack more quickly on your opponent's king's side of the board. That's exactly what black did. A model game. White trying to fight back here. But if Sina is able to win, this will do a lot to decide who advances tomorrow. A queen sacrifice. Oh, fancy chess to win the game. Now black is up a rook and a knight. I love that idea.
Yeah, beautiful idea. In fact, I thought it was a blunder until I saw the h pawn had been making its way quietly to